Very good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome. Today, myself, Keshav this side, and this is the first session of the day. I hope everyone is in good health and wellness. So here we proceed with the session. Today we have Lucy G, and it's my honor and pleasure to introduce her. Uh, Although she's more of like mentor to me, so allow me to give a glimpse of her life journey. She born in UK and graduated from Oxford University, UK, in bachelor's and master's honors in metallurgy or science of materials. She started her illustrious career at top American investment banks. Following her life-changing experience, she left this life behind and embarking on her spiritual journey with Swami Bhamrishi Vishwanath Bhavraji. I hope I pronounce it right. Uh, Thereafter, she deep dived into Indian culture at Varanasi and draws on her ancient wisdom of Vedas, Upanishads, and the Gita, bringing the light of knowledge into the deep practice of her eight limbs of yoga daily life. And through this journey, a lot of medals and a lot of honorary awards. So right now she's pursuing PhD in Sanskrit grammar, and she's also a part of of WOSY, which is World Organization of Students and Youth. She's also a founder of Kashi Yoga Festival, co-founded the Bhamrishi School of Yoga uh, at Varanasi itself. It's an international NGO which is working on yoga mission and registered as a trust in India, uh, which is mainly promoting Sanatan Dharma and Bharatiya Sanskriti and yoga as a way of life and education. So I really want to welcome uh, Lucy G. And thank you everyone for having us. Please proceed, Lucy G.
Pranam. I'd like to start with a prayer to my teachers. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Oh. Pranam, and thank you so much to ICCR and WOSY for inviting me to be here today to talk about the great treasures of India, yoga and Ayurveda. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation to share with you, if I could have the share rights so that I can show you what we have got for you today. So I'm very lucky to have been part of WOSY for the last 15 years. I joined as a high school student, actually, 15 years ago in Varanasi at my college, and I'm now doing my PhD. So it's been a really amazing association to grow up in the WOSY family. So starting at the very beginning of yoga and the very beginning of this indigenous culture, because yoga is not just something that has started today, but has started many thousands of years ago. And it really depends on how old you think this existence is. How long do you think that man has been around? Determines how old you think yoga is. And the extraordinary thing is that whilst it seems new and relevant today, it was just as new and relevant as it was 5,000 years ago, 9,000 years ago, whatever you consider time to be. But one thing that's very important about yoga is that this isn't a part of knowledge that just belongs to one community or one group of people. It comes from a time when we didn't have geographical boundaries, when we didn't have groupings of nationalities and social structures, different colors, and even religion wasn't in existence. There was simply the earth, which we consider to be our mother, and the universe, our home. And so that consciousness, which you heard Dr. Sri Ram Dr. Sharma talking about on the first morning, is something that was understood and was part of everyday life. And humanity saw itself as just one family, with everyone being simply brothers and sisters. And this is what we see when we talk about unity and diversity, ekatvam anupashita, where there's no divisions, there's just humanity. And from the very beginning, there are a few things that were understood. That life was like a river flowing between two banks, the left bank of birth and the right bank of death. And we had like a beautiful Upanishad shloka that I'd like to sing to you, chant to you, because it really gives us an understanding about the integration of life. Yata nadyasyan damana sumadre stam gachanti namarupe vihaya tata vidwan namarupat vimukta parat param purushamupeti divyam. So this is talking about all mankind and all existence. And it's telling you that just as a river, when it goes into the ocean, it abandons its names and forms and becomes just one with the ocean, that you can't determine in its individuality. And in the same way, mankind, when it absorbs into its universal form, it becomes one with that, with no individuality, like an ocean of consciousness with waves rising and falling, expressing life and death. But there's always this underlying consciousness, which is part and parcel of us. We're never separate. And so that is what the background of yoga is, that there's this universal humanity where everyone's brothers and sisters. And these practices of yoga have been given us to go beyond the limitations and suffering, to be beyond that pain. And again, it's been taught over thousands and thousands and thousands of years by different teachers who are coming and going all of the time, and yet remains ever new and ever fresh. And these days, it comes down to a combination of like 84 postures, 8 pranayamas, 6 kinds of cleansing kriyas, but all part and parcel of this tradition, this indigenous tradition called yoga. So what actually is yoga? How do we understand the word? Because the word yoga is probably the most well-known word from Sanskrit in the entire world. I think there's not a single country on this planet where yoga isn't practiced. And the meaning of the word is very simple. We have like a 5,000-year-old dictionary that tells us that the word yoga comes from 2 definitions. One, yujang samado, meaning sama buddhi, stable intellect, stable wisdom. And the other, yujir yoga, union. So it's talking about union with ourselves, having a stable intellect, which is for all people in all places at all times. And Patanjali has given us a definition about 2,500 or so years ago, saying yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. That yoga is that restraining of the modifications of the mind and taking us beyond limitations. So why would we want to practice yoga now? Ultimately, everybody wants peace and happiness, and that's behind every action that we set out to complete in life. And if we're not having peace now, then we're not going to get it in our future. And it's experienced in the here and now. It's not important whether we had it in the past, but we do want it now. And so every now becomes our past. And if we have it now, then we have the potentiality to have it in the future. And that's the basis of what all of these techniques about. And we found in Sankhya philosophy that life is about getting free of the three kinds of pain: the individual experience of pain, adiboltic, adidevik, the collective, and then ultimately the spiritual adhyatmic pain, which is actually the separation from ourselves. And that's really what does cause us a lot of pain, is that disintegration, that lack of unity within. And so if we can learn how to integrate the changeable into and the unchangeable as our life experience, bringing peace into our presence, that's how we can go beyond all the troubles that we face. So there's many different techniques, and you'll hear, if you go to yoga groups, you hear about Ashtanga, Hatha, Kriya, Vinyasa, and so many more. But if it's yoga, it's always going to come down to giving you that stable wisdom, that stable experience inside, and that integral experience of unity within yourself, not having this constant push and pull of whether to do things or not to do things, which I'll explain in a little bit. So Ashtanga practice is very simple. It's yama, niyam, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharan, dhyana, and samadhi. So it's talking about how we live with ourselves, how we behave in society, like telling truth, not stealing, being clean, amongst other things. And then we have the postures and the pranayama, the practice of control of breath. Pratyahara, going beyond the senses, being in control of our own senses, being able to become one-pointed, being able to concentrate on that one point and becoming absorbed in that, getting that state of stable wisdom. So the next is very well known, Hatha Yoga. And I really would like to know from all of you whether you have, whether you practice yoga, what kind of yoga you've practiced. So I really look forward to seeing those kind of messages in the chat group when I can find where the chat is. So tell me what your experience was with yoga, maybe where you practiced and what practice you actually did. So one of the very well-known practices is Hatha Yoga. And Hatha Yoga tells you exactly what it is. It comes from two Sanskrit seed words, hum and thumb. So hum is like the right nostril and thumb the left. And you can understand that there's two different kinds of breath, which we call prana and apana. And it also reflects heat of the right nostril, so the sun, overactivity of the right nostril, and the left nostril being cold, moon, and inactivity, inertia, laziness. And that hatha is when these two left and right breaths become balanced. And so the breath out of the left and out of the right is equal. And if you just breathe on your nose, on your hand now, just take a breath from your nose, breathing on your hand, and tell me what you experienced. Because what happens is throughout the day, our left and our right nostrils are constantly increasing and decreasing. And so this is expressing the different states of whether there's heating and cooling in our body, and whether we're overexcited, we're very happy, or we're feeling very lazy and we're very tired. And so the practices of yoga through the postures and the pranayama can bring these breaths into balance. And that is what hatha means. And when we get that state of hatha, we're also able to withdraw from the senses. So that's like a really magical thing, that we can control our state of existence within. Like if we're not well and we've got a fever, we can bring our temperature down by controlling the right and the left nostril. If we aren't feeling hungry, but it's time to eat food, probably means that the left nostril is dominating. And so we can close our nostril and force breath to come out of the right to increase our digestive fire, which means that when we eat the food, then the food is going to be able to be digested. So that's what is so important about these two breaths. I haven't been able to find out where I can see the chat yet whilst we're speaking. So I will look at your messages in a short time as soon as I can find out how to do that. So another practice, which is what I practice, is Maha Yoga, which is a combination of the Hatha Yoga, the Mantra Yoga, which is mantra, you know, is something that's very misunderstood. And mantra means Mananat Traititi mantra. Mananat, cogitations of the mind. Traite, protection. So mantra is that vibration which can protect you from the cogitations of the mind. And that can be so many different words. One I really like is Om, which we'll discuss in depth later. So thanks, Siddiqui ji, for your message. So Laya Yoga is that where we consider our I-amness, getting that sense of unity in the diversity. And Raja Yoga, you can understand in simple terms like psychology, controlling your intellect, which brings control of your individual ego, which brings control of your mind. So that brings our thought under control. So I've mentioned that, you know, everybody's wanting peace. So what are the challenges we face in life? Why aren't we getting peace? I mean, it's not about where you've been born or what kind of family you're in. Depression and worry and tension can come to anybody at any stage of life, whether you're young or old. And these days, the challenges faced by young people are so much more demanding that even, you know, from 20 years ago, from 30 years ago, from 40 years ago, the academic demands are so much greater in terms of performing in exams. And then we have the natural tendencies, which is to be diverted by individual desires that may or may not be fulfilled, and not being fulfilled, that leads us to an experience of suffering and can lead to anger and so many other things. And also, even if our desire is satisfied, it's really a temporary pleasure. And so we go through life seeking these more and more demanding pleasures that are fleeting and leave us with the same experience at the end of the day, which can be confused, unhappy, or worried. So these are the kind of things that yoga teaches us and help us to bring under control so that we can lead a balanced life in peace. And it's expressed in Patanjali Yoga Darshana as Hridaya Panchate Klishta Klishta. Now, it's talking about 5 modifications of the mind. And the reason I brought you this Sanskrit shloka is to show you that this psychology isn't just coming today. This was written more than 2,500 years ago, this particular line. And it's telling us that the 5 modifications of the mind are correct evaluation, proof, opposite knowledge, misconceptions, speculation, and should I, shouldn't I, even deep sleep and memory are defined as these modifications of the mind which bring us pain, klishta, or aklishta, which means an absence of pain. So this great psychology has been going for thousands of years. And yet, if we go to a psychologist today, these are precisely the things that they'll talk about. And particularly memory. If you think about memory, just for a moment, think of a memory. Bring a memory into your mind and see how that memory brings emotions with it, maybe of happiness, maybe of fear or sadness. But whatever it is, it brings that modification of the mind, that those emotions into your here and now. And so the practice of yoga is something that can help us go beyond these 5 modifications, getting us into a state of peace. And we're also told that another reason that we can suffer in the present is through 7 stages of downfall. And it starts with concentrating on objects. For instance, if we've got an exam coming up and we're thinking about it again and again and again, and then we get a desire for doing well in that exam. And whether we did or we didn't, we may experience anger afterwards. Perhaps we didn't get such a great result as we were hoping for. And when we get into that state of anger and that state of turmoil comes, we forget our stability. And that leads to the forgetting who we are, which leads to you can say, the disturbance of our intellect, which leads to destruction of ourselves. So it starts with being able to control our focus on objects. And if you think about karate and judo and all the martial arts, this is something that they teach at the very beginning, which is how important it is not to lose your temper. And so this practice of yoga goes a few steps backwards, saying how we don't get into that position and how we can control our mind by focusing on not external objects, but on that internal experience. So what the journey is in yoga was expressed at least 9,000 years ago in a very simple way. Ashta Chakra Naudwara Devanam Purayotya. It tells us that our body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, a mouth, and 2 lower gates. And it says that this body is called Ayodhya. And Ayodhya, the reason the word Ayodhya is used here is really pure psychology, because it says Ayodhya, Nayodhya, Ayodhya, that place where there's no battles. So it's telling us in the Vedas that our body consists of 9 gates, which is called the place of no battles, where there's no inner turmoil, where whatever our understanding of divinity or God is, that exists. And Ashta Chakra, 8 chakras, 8 wheels. The Muladhara, Swadhisthana at the pelvis, Manipur at the stomach area, Anahat at the middle of the chest, Vishuddha at the throat, Lalana at the palate, Agya between the eyebrows, and the Brahmachakra at the very top of the head. And you may remember Professor Anuradhaji yesterday talking about the point between our eyebrows, the pituitary gland, and we have the pineal at the top of the head, that is connected to these chakras, the Agya chakra and the Brahma chakra. So bringing our energy through these energy centers is also part of the practice of yoga, getting to the state of consciousness where there's no inner battle, no turmoil. So that's why we practice yoga, to be able to get this peace and happiness and health also. Because even the word health in Sanskrit is described as swastha. Swatisthiti iti swastha. Being stable in yourself is how to get health. So we have the tools of controlling our mind, postures through the asanas, controlling our breath through pranayama, and meditation. And all of these practices get us to the point where we're able to withdraw from the senses at will, using them under our own control, using our discrimination. So that gets us to the point where we no longer grieve, we don't suffer. So that you can also say that it's about knowing yourself, getting that integration within yourself, ekatvam anupashita, realizing that you're unity in diversity. And what's the reason that we don't understand everything that's going around us? We have this intellect, our ego, our mind, and the senses. And our intellect is like this colorless crystal. And so, like, I've got these glasses that you might be able to see. They're colorless. So I just see things as they are. But every single one of us has got this individuality. We've got our own way of doing things. We've got our own way of thinking. And this comes down to what we call the three gunas: Rajaguna, Tamaguna, and Satguna. And so everybody has these combinations and an individual combination. And so if you understand this combination like a colored energy, so say one person is like got this red energy and another person has got blue energy, and it's purely scientific. So if someone who's got the red energy, imagine it's like wearing red colored lenses. And the other person with the blue kind of energy has got like these blue lenses. So when they both look at something that's yellow, what happens is that they see, instead of the yellow, the one with the orange, with the red glasses sees orange, and the one with the blue glasses sees green. And that's the reason why in society we have misunderstandings, why we have disagreements within the family, because each one of us has our own way of understanding things and seeing things. And so it's like wearing these colored lenses. And the other thing is that our intellect, the very nature of it, is this colorless crystal, Sat. And that's why we can't see the other person's point of view as well, because we are convinced that we see it right. And Nyan and Siddiqui ji, you're saying like you see it white when it's actually black. And this is what happens to everybody in society. Everybody has these individualities, which distorts what we see. And so what happens is we get collections in society. Say, for example, lots of people with different red kind of thinking, and they all agree that it's kind of, yeah, orange. And then we have all of these people that kind of agree that it's blue because green, because they've all got different shades of blue, and nothing will get these two groups to agree. And so the practices of yoga and meditation or pranayama get us back to this position of this colorless crystal, so that we're able to see things as they are, that we're able to understand what's happening around us, and we're able also to be balanced so that we can bring the different groups together as well. So yogi being a yogi is basically very simple, about having balanced intellect, being stable in wisdom. Stit pragyastadocchite, they say in the Gita. And these are, again, ancient slokas that tell us that someone who has got stable wisdom is balanced in auspicious and inauspicious circumstances, in love and in hate, in happiness and in sadness, and is able like a tortoise. The last sloka tells us, Yada samharte chayam kumangani vasavisha, being able to be like a tortoise, withdrawing the limbs at will, being able to control our senses. And when we need to use our senses, because sometimes it's important to be able to feel hot or cold, to be aware that there's electricity running or there's not electricity running. So it's not about shutting off your senses, but it's learning how to be not driven by your senses, but being able to be stable in yourself and use your discrimination to be aware of what to do and what not to do. So the practices are very simple. Starts with our external practices of the yamas and the niyamas, how we behave in life. And the third step is these postures. And the definition of a posture is sthir sukham asanam. The extraordinary thing about yoga is that it's not about how much you bend your body, but about bending your body or being in a position according to your ability. And the actual asana is defined as that which is stable and comfortable. And the reason that's really important is because if our body is always moving, then the vayus, the gases within us, can't be brought under control in pranayama, which is the next step. But first, let's look at some of the practices of these postures, because I thought about picking up a few really key asanas that tell you a little bit about yoga. And I'd really have any of you practice this posture. It's called Vrikshasana, which is tree pose, and it benefits the entire body. And you can see that the lungs are expanded, the arms are all stretched up, and it's affecting lots of different parts of the body through the channels in the arms. And it's not only about bringing the physical health through the postures. If you practice this posture, you also improve your balance, which also helps your mental balance, and it helps you to improve your concentration, which is so important as students for us to be able to concentrate for long periods of time. So this kind of asana can not only bring us health, but also improve our concentration. Now, each asana has a Sanskrit name, and Dr. Radhaji gave you beautiful descriptions of Sanskrit yesterday, which literally means Sanskritam, which means perfected. So this language has an effect on us as well. So this is Vrikshasana, tree pose. One of the most useful postures that I have found is Sarvang Asanam, which literally means Sarva meaning all. So Sarvang Asanam, Ang meaning limbs, means benefiting all parts of your body. In English, people tend to know it as shoulder stand, but this is such a powerful asana that if you just do it for 4 minutes, it's equivalent to the benefits on your endocrine and your glandular and lymphatic system as taking a walk for 4 kilometers. Now you can see that this young boy is inverted. So obviously all the blood's going down and it's going into his brain, bringing, cleaning the brain, bringing a sense of peace, also improving the eyesight because it's refreshing all of the nerves around the eyes, but it also affects all limbs of the body. So it's working on your digestion, maybe there's a pain somewhere in your body. Even I'm using this posture to heal a crushed spine. So this is probably, if I could say, like, you've only got time to do one asana. This is the one asana that I would tell people to do. And you can even do it for like an hour long. There's no limit for how long you can do it. And my teacher used to do it for 3 hours. But if you can work up, at least in the beginning, to 4 minutes, that's really amazing. Vajrasana is another really useful asana, and there's several different variations of this. Here you can see the child's holding his feet, but he could also be sitting upright as I am on his knees, or he could be, as he is, down resting on his nose with his arms outstretched in the front of him, so like bowing down on the ground, which we see so many different traditions using. This asana is called Vajrasana, which literally means thunderbolt, but some of you may know it as being called child's pose. And the reason that it's so powerful is, if you look at this child, you can see that the head's down and the shoulders are down, the neck's down. And so what's happening is inverting so that the energy is flowing through, like washing any pain or tension in the neck or in the shoulders. The stomach is in contact with the thighs and the knees, so putting pressure. So that's really great for improving our digestion or other stomach problems that we have. And with the eyes being lower than the body, it helps with the eyes. And also we've got like the blood of the body rushing through and through the head. So it also gives us a great sense of calm. And this is an asana that I've often like done for just a few minutes or even up to an hour. And then again, it's an asana that you can do just on its own. Now, every name of these asanas has great meaning. And so I've got an example here to tell you about Mayur Asanam. It looks like a really advanced pose, but I can tell you that I can get you into the first stages of this pose just on the very first day, using like the side of a bed or a bench or something to help you find that balance point. Now, the reason that I've mentioned Mayur Asana here is because it means peacock pose. And every Sanskrit name of each posture has great meaning because it tells you something about what that pose does. Like we just saw Sarvang Asanam and we saw Vajrasana making you strong like a thunderbolt. And Mayurasana tells you that by practicing this posture, you can become beautiful like a peacock, but also have the qualities of a peacock. And the special features of a peacock is that you can eat poison. A peacock eats snakes. And so a peacock being able to digest the poison of a snake is replicated in this posture, meaning that we are able to digest the poisons of our mind and poisons in our body. I don't mean eat arsenic or something like that, but I mean the toxins of our system. The imbalances of our system get destroyed through doing this posture. And I've given you two examples of how it can be done here. But in the very beginning, it's a question of just finding your balance point. And if anyone ever wants to learn that, just contact me and I'd be happy to show you even by Zoom. And has anyone practiced any of these postures? We'd love to know. Matsyasana means fish. And again, this asana doesn't, what asanas have you practiced, Nikhil Kumarji? So, Matsyasana is really important. really important and sticks to its name because if you do this asana properly, this is the advanced form, and you're using the right breathing techniques, you actually float on water. And my teacher, once in the Ganga, was found floating and down Haridwar, a couple of kilometers beyond Haridwar, because he was in this posture and he had gone into meditation and he hadn't realized that he'd gone into meditation and had floated all across Haridwar and even past Haridwar. And this is like the beginning version of Matsyasanam. So here are a few other common postures. I mean, there's so many, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's 84, 85, depending on what school of yoga you come from. And this first one here in the top left-hand corner is Bhujangasanam, which means snake pose. And the important, this is like a really great asana for anybody who's got any pains in the back or just general well-being, and it helps us bring focus to our mind as well, bringing our energy to the point between our eyebrows, and you can see that the lungs are opening, so it's opening that chest and bringing just overall well-being. The second posture on the right is that you can see he's bringing his knees to his chest, called Pawan Muktasan, which literally means getting free of wind. So it's massaging the stomach, and it's a great asana that you can do on your back. Rolling your back with can be massaging your spine, going backwards and forwards, again bringing you a great sense of well-being. No need to go for a massage. The third asana down here on the left is Dhanurasana, which means bow pose. And so a bow is like an arrow being able to focus on one point. And you can see that he's opening his chest, but he's also opening the whole stomach area. So it means that he's massaging all the internal organs, the intestines, the liver, the spleen, the pancreas, and the stomach itself, and also part of the diaphragm. And so you can even rock backwards and forwards in this so that you can heal any part of your body. And pulling the feet up is what exposes this whole area to this. And thanks for all the messages. I'm getting a few private messages about what postures you like doing, and asking about this PowerPoint presentation. And thanks for enjoying it. The fourth asana on this pose, on this poster, is Shavasana. And who doesn't love doing Shavasana? Shavasana literally means cork pose, but it's much more meaningful than this. It sometimes is used by people who teach yoga nidra and can bring us into deep sleep. You can do this posture even just before you go to bed, but you can also do it throughout your practice of asanas and pranayama. Just bringing the legs apart, bringing your hands apart, facing the palms upwards, and just completely letting go. And in this posture, you're having lots of points on the back of your body being stimulated. So it's improving your whole body's circulation, bringing you overall well-being, and of course, being totally relaxed. You can also relax your mind as well. So that's just a few, introducing you to just a few asanas. Pranayama, I told you, is the fourth step. And you've got an example here of one of our young kids doing pranayama. And pranayama is really about controlling the inhalation and the exhalation, both on a physical level and a subtle level. Because we actually have three bodies. We have a physical body, which you understand as your physical body. You've got a subtle body, which you can understand to be like the mind. There's more to it than that, but on a simple level. And the third is your causal body, which you can understand to be like your intellect. There are more things behind it as well, but just keeping it simple to begin with, of your physical body, your subtle body, and your causal body. So the physical, the mind, and the intellect. And so we have breath, not just physical, but subtle as well. And this balance of the inhalation and the exhalation is what we call pranayama, control of the pranas, the breaths. And so breath is, without breath, there is no individuality. It starts as soon as we're born, when that umbilical cord is cut, and is with us till the last moment in life. And pranayama, balancing these two breaths, the prana and the apan, is what brings this mental stability. It's also very purifying for our whole body. It can cure so many diseases. I don't want to make lots of specific claims, but I just tell you that I've seen people in hospital beds with terminal situations that have been able to get themselves to full recovery just through these practices of breath. And so on a very simple level, you can understand that breath is inhalation. On a physical level, bringing oxygen into your body, which makes you feel light and refreshed. And exhalation is discharging that carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide really is one of the main causes of disease, creating an acidic environment in our system. And I think that you can understand, like, if you've got a flu or cold or like COVID, you have got seriously disturbed breathing. And so we can really be supported by bringing our breath back into balance. And the reason that it has such an effect on our mind is because since ancient times, they've found that thought and breath are twins. And this is how it works. When we start worrying, we start a chain reaction when we are experiencing stress. And that worrying starts by creating mental tension in our body. You can feel yourself tightening up, and you can also start feeling heat in the head. And that starts to bring a disturbance to our system and imbalances it. Now that imbalance, like the tightening of our system, starts to cause improper breathing, because what happens is the oxygen is not able to fully inflate the lungs because the lungs are shrinking. And so we're getting less and less oxygen. And so we're getting less oxygen to flush out our system. And so what we start to get is a buildup of carbon dioxide, which creates tiredness, can increase white blood cells. It can make the body feel lazy and stiff. And so many different diseases can come just by our breath not being normal. And blood pressure can also increase because we start to get thickening of the blood. I wonder if you look at yourself, can see that you have ever experienced this increased stress in your system when you start worrying. Being able to look at ourselves and observe ourselves and see what our real troubles are really helps us in getting to that integrated situation where we don't have this internal battle. And pranayama is a technique as well that can help us reverse the process. And it goes like this. So the pranayama, so you're getting fresh oxygen, and that starts by thinning five different pranas in our system in different parts of the body, which I'll show you in just a moment. Now, the pran, apan, saman, vayan, and udhan in the different parts of the body, when they start getting rebalanced, it means ultimately that our brain starts getting the correct blood pressure and amount of blood, improving the quality of our brain cells, making a better nervous system, enabling us to start getting calm, getting us back to that point where we can bring our thoughts under control. And truly, we'll see in a couple of minutes, we'll do some practices together of how we can just bring that state of calm back into our systems. So I've mentioned pran and apan a lot. So there's this pran vayu, which is basically in physical terms, we can understand it to be between the nostrils and around to the heart area. Then below that, from the chest area to the navel, we have saman. And apan is below that. Udan is from the throat upwards, and Vyan is in the whole body. So when we do this pranayama, we are working in subtle ways on these different prans in the body and balancing them all. And there's lots of different techniques, but I'm going to mention four very well-known ones, which are Anoma Viloma, which we can practice all year round. Kapalbhati is literally means shining skull, and Vastrika is like these bastrik, which is the bellows that we use to increase a fire. So Vastrika increasing heat in our system, and Shitali, which we generally do in the hot season because Shitali brings cold. And I'll show you a few examples after a few important points in just a moment. So we have the inhaling, holding breath in, exhaling, and holding the breath out. These are the four stages of breath. And these are combined with the pran, the pranas, and the inhalation and the exhalation as well. So with whether we're doing Anoma Viloma or we're doing Kapalbhati or Bastrika or Shitali, whatever pranayama we're doing, we have 3 locks. And that is because we want to control the gases moving inside us on a physical level, and then on a subtle level, the pranas themselves. So this is a picture of Mula Bandha, where we contract our lower gate, preventing gases from going out. Uddiyana Bandha, this is the advanced form of Uddiyana Bandha, and I want to explain how that works, is that when you exhale completely, your lungs are completely empty. What happens is you create a vacuum inside, and that vacuum, naturally, without you doing anything at all, brings our stomach in. As you can see, his stomach muscles are contracted. And that also brings together with it Jalanda Bandha, which is the lungs are contracted, the stomach's gone in, and the throat naturally gets sucked down by this vacuum in the chest. And what happens, and this is how we get this piece, because I've got a question just now, how can we relax ourselves while we study a lot? And so what happens when we do pranayama is that our prana is in our head part, and it starts to go up, and it starts to bring peace to the mind by bringing a balance of the breath. So we're balancing the left and the right breaths. Combined with these locks, bring you to the stopping that flickering from left to right, from left to right, getting that tension of studying, for example, for exams a lot, which can take us into a state of high tension, high worry. And so this pranayama, these breathing techniques, reverse that process of worry, bringing our breath back to like a normalized level, which enables us to start feeling relaxed again and be able to concentrate on our focus point, whatever our subject might be. So Anoma Viloma is something that I would like to invite you to practice with me now. I'll go back to sharing some slides after that in just a few moments, but would like invite you to raise your hands or however it may be. Maybe some of my friends from WOSY also would like to turn your videos on and we can practice Anoma Viloma together. Let me just show you, whilst you're thinking about that, let me just show you some of the different breathing techniques, which I just got asked it out privately. Anoma Viloma is also known as alternate nostril breathing. And what we have is we have on our right hand, we make a mudra. You can see my thumb is on top and my forefinger underneath. And what we do is we close our thumb, which represents our intellect, and our forefinger represents our ego, all of the negative things. If you think about it, when we're annoyed with someone, we point at them and we like throwing lots of energy at them, you can understand. So that's the ego. And so bringing our intellect on top of our ego, and we can rest that on our knee, and on the right hand, we bring our little finger and our first finger out, closing the thumb with the two middle fingers, like you can see like a bull or a deer, if you understand it like that. And that goes on our nose. And so what we do is we hold on to the nose and we inhale from the left, exhale through the right, holding out the breath. And it's really important to hold out the breath because if we have any impurities in our system, holding out the breath enables us to start removing them from our system so that when we take our next breath, so we inhale, we get a full blast of oxygen, cleaning out our system and helping to increase the oxygen in our system, helping us to reverse the trend of worry in our system, inflating our lungs properly, and breaking all the sensations of tension in our body. So that was just one round. So I'll just show you again without speaking, or rather in speaking and just telling you inhale and exhale. So you, with their fingers like this, and perhaps some of you would like to try it where you're sitting. No need to show us if you don't want to. And holding onto your nose, inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right, holding out the breath. So both nostrils are closed. And when you need to, you then inhale again through the right, and exhale through the left. So doing that again, inhaling through the left, Exhaling through the right. Holding out the breath. Inhaling. And exhaling. We'll just do a couple more. Inhale. And exhale. Holding out the breath. Inhale. And exhale. Now we just did very few of those, and one of you telling me that your left nostril isn't exhaling very well or inhaling very well, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, that these left and these right breaths. And what we do is, if we carry on doing these pranayama techniques, and I'll show you a few more. For example, Bastrika. If we carry on doing these techniques, what happens is our two nostrils start getting in balance. And so, for example, for you, Naveedji, your left's not working, but I see another person, your right's not working. And so just doing these in and out, in and out, so they gradually start balancing up so that they become even. And when they come even is when we are very able to have a stable mind, able to withdraw from the senses, and in fact even go into meditation. And when I say meditation, meditation is something that we're doing 24 hours a day, but we're choosing different points of concentration. So when we're studying for our exams, even then we're meditating on our subject material for our exams. So these techniques, whether it's Anoma Viloma or Bastrika, which is like this, I don't know if you can hear the breath. This Bastrika is called bellows breath, which is increasing heat in our system and destroying the toxins in our system. And generally we use in the winter. Then we have another Nadi Shodhana, which means purification of the channels, the nadis. And it goes something like this. Now you can see that's a very strong pranayama, and it's like when I'm doing it right now, try it for yourself. You can feel everything like opening up and making my eyes bright and wide, but it's also working on other parts of the body, and it immediately the head is feeling like cool. And you know, this is an old definition of health, that warm feet, soft stomach, and a cool head. So pranayama this is really working on our whole system. And Anoma Viloma was a very, very easy one. And I'm going to show you another very easy one in a moment. Bastrika and Nadi Shodhana, I'm still getting private messages. So Bastrika and Nadi Shodhana, particularly Nadi Shodhana, is much harder because it relies on the flexibility, elasticity of your stomach muscles. But with practice, I can assure you that all of these pranayamas become very easy. When I started doing yoga 20-something years ago, I had very severe arthritis, and yoga helped cure arthritis, that I became completely pain free, and also started being able to say that I was much calmer and quieter and not worried. So I've been doing it for a while now, but you guys, when you do it, I assure you that one day, like when I couldn't do it in the very beginning, you'll also be able to do it just like me. It requires nothing special. And then you've got Kapalbhati, which literally means shining breath, and shining skull. So shining skull is more like, if you can do Nadi Shodhana, then you can do this sound very well. So Nadi Shodhana like this. And if you can make that sound, then you can make Kapalbhati. Now, there's a big difference between Bhastrika and Kapalbhati. And Kapalbhati, if you can hear from my sound, is going much more up through the top of the head. So that's Kapalbhati pranayama. And since it's like going up through the head, this is bringing you also again to that state of peace and calm. And in fact, every single pranayama will bring you to that calm, collected, peaceful state of mind. And it's a question of which pranayama you really like. And if you've got some particular illness or problem in your body, you can choose a pranayama according to that. Now, Shitali pranayama is cooling breath. And we definitely mustn't, we definitely should avoid this if we actually have a cold or something like that. And if you can see my tongue, your tongue comes, the tongue comes round like this. I hope you can see that. And if you can't do that, you can just close your teeth, bring your tongue to touch your teeth, and you will inhale and you'll feel cool breath. Obviously, don't do this if you have a cold. So that's Shitali pranayama. And going on, we can have Brahmari, which you might have heard of, like a hummingbird breath, where we close the ears and the eyes and the nose, and we could like, this is a great pranayama for beginners. And I'm really happy to see the messages that are still coming through. So postures is something that can help get your physical body well, but also bring you stability. Pranayama also can help you getting a cool and calm and relaxed mind. And when our thoughts are under control, pratyahara, withdrawing from the senses, automatically happens. And you can understand this as, I'm just being asked, how much time per day, what time of day is good for Anoma Viloma? Basically, the idea is to practice on an empty stomach. So at least 3 hours after food. So the best time of day, early in the morning, very early in the morning if you can, or in the evening after all your food's digested. Ideally, there's a lot of research looking at brain scans and old traditions that suggest doing pranayama for 20 minutes brings a huge change in life. So if you, in an ideal situation, if you had 1.5 hours, you could do like 50 minutes of asanas, 20 minutes of pranayama, and then 20 minutes of meditation. And understand that this, so I hope that Robert answers your question. And so in an ideal world, twice a day, morning and evening, 20 minutes for Anoma Viloma. So Pratyahara is like withdrawing from the senses, and you can understand it like an octopus that you lift out of the water, where the senses, when you lift that octopus out of water, their 8 limbs go down, and they're no longer able to touch any of the, have the experience of, through the senses of things in the water. And in the same way, when we do asanas and pranayama, what happens is our prana, our energy, is going up. And so we lift out of the senses, so that we're like that tortoise that I mentioned earlier, so that we withdraw from the senses and we can start to use them at will through our discrimination. So in the Upanishads, we have like a really wonderful analogy. And it's telling us that there's like this chariot with a person holding the reins, driving the chariot, and the horses being held by the reins. And so our body's like this chariot, and our organs, our senses are like the horses, going in any old direction, totally under control. So to bring them under control, we need reins, the mind, and the charioteer, which is the intellect, who will take control of the mind. So we've got this body, we've got a charioteer, which is the intellect, controlling the reins, which is the mind, which controls the sense organs, which are the horses. And through the practice of yoga, that's what we're doing. We are getting us back to that state of peace and happiness and health by controlling through our intellect, through our mind, the sense organs. And so that's the external part of yoga. Now the internal part, which is dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. And so dharana is that fixing your mind on one point. Dhyana, meditation, constant flow of awareness into that point. And I mentioned that we're actually all meditating 24 hours a day. There's not a time of day that we're not meditating, but we're always choosing a different point on calling someone, reading a book, going somewhere. And so we're always fulfilling those, each of those actions through concentration. And ultimately what happens is that when we concentrate on a continued basis onto one point, we become absorbed in that, we become one-pointed. And that absorption is that samadhi, which I told you means stable wisdom, stable intellect. So basically, at the very end of it, whilst we these days, a lot of people understand asanas as being yoga, yoga really ultimately is that meditation, and everything else, the yama, niyam, asana, pranayama, or pratyahara, is preparing us for being able to sit quietly and concentrate. So in meditation, we have 3 main ways to do that. Concentrating on the letters of a mantra, concentrating on the letters with its meaning. And remember, I said mantra means mananat trayatiti mantra, that thing which protects you from the cogitations of the mind. And finally, we can concentrate on the sound and the meaning of that mantra. So this happens step by step. So you can just start by concentrating on one point in the beginning. And that is what enables us to turn our senses inward and our mind to become calm and quiet, and our intellect to become actionless, which is the last stage of meditation, taking us to the state of consciousness where there's no battles, where we realize that unity in diversity, that ekatvam anupashyate. And I'm just being asked, can we eat after yoga? And yes, you can wait till like about half an hour after doing yoga to eat. But same for drinking as well. Let your system settle down again. And so this practice of yoga is really what everybody's looking before, we want to be free of all of those things that trouble us in the mind. We want to be happy all the time. And so these practices are the key to that. And we have to do it ourselves. No one can do it for us. So just being told that there's these practices and we listen to it and we enjoy it isn't enough to understand what life is really about. In the same way that if you've heard about electricity and light, that doesn't mean that a dark room becomes lit. You have to turn on the light to get the electricity to flow. So these are physical practices and mental practices. And one of the important things I've mentioned a few times is Mananat Traititi mantra, that thing that protects you from the cogitations of the mind. And a very simple one is Om. Now, I'd love you to do this practice with me. I'd like you to touch your throat and go, oh. And I hope that you're feeling that strikes against your hand from the throat. Then go, ooh. And see my lips. You can see my lips surrounding ooh. And ma is at the top of my nasal passages. And that is what makes Om a naturally uplifting sound. And we see this Om linguistically expressed in so many different traditions, like even in English, we say home. Home, in the middle of home is Om, meaning this body, yatapinde tatabramande, this body is like the whole universe and it's my home. This Om is within me. And it's described as a naturally uplifting word in the Vedas. And we see it like linguistically coming into Amen and Shalom. And in so many different, in so many different traditions, we see this linguistically transforming into a universal sound. So we have these 4 states of consciousness, and that's connected to the U, and Ma on the consciousness level. And that takes us into what I'll talk very briefly about Ayurveda, because I can see I've taken a long time to talk to you about yoga. But I've mentioned to you that we've got 3 bodies: the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. And I'm just being asked a few questions. I hope that I'm being asked to, if I can come and teach. Of course, I can come and teach. And also, I think may have missed a question somewhere. So can you rewrite your question, because I must have missed it. I'm really sorry. So these combination of the 3 bodies are the crux of what we are. That's what makes us what we are. And in Ayurveda, we have in the Sushruta Samsita, Samadosha, Samagnischa, Samudatu Malakriya, Prasanna Atma Indra Mana Swasta Ityabhidhiyate. So it's telling us basically what health is, how we can recognize health, how we can have health, balance in the doshas, balance in our fires. We have, for example, digestive fire. Balance in the dhatus, in the root, for the root parts of us. Balance in the mala, the excretions. Balance in our actions. Having our physical body functioning normally. Having prasanna atma, having a steady mind, being contented, being in control of our senses and being connected to ourselves. And that is the definition of swast, being healthy, from the ancient texts of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda basically means Ayu, which means life, age, and so you can understand longevity. and Veda meaning knowledge. So this Ayurveda are techniques to promote longevity and in health. And these days, it's very often practiced through getting a healthy metabolic system. But I'll show you a few of the techniques. And it's about getting good digestion, good excretion. So balancing the whole systems of our body. And it typically recommends yoga and meditation and a sattvic diet. So we've got being asked some questions about diet. There are 8 ways that we can diagnose illness through these: Nadi, Mutra, Mala, Jiva, Shabda, Sparsha. And we have different gunas. And these gunas are like the opposites: cold and hot, oily and dry, etc. And when we're being diagnosed by an Ayurvedic doctor, he'll also be looking for all of this and diagnose for the qualities of food to recommend according to individual constitution. And that answers one of the questions I've been asked. So there's 3 doshas: Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. And that's individual to each one of us. We have our own natural constitution, and which doesn't change, but also through time, we have our Vikriti, which is constantly changing and is expressed through these doshas, which they diagnose. And that's down to what we eat, how we live, how we get up, what's around us, and whether we're in a balanced state of mind or not. So these 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, are the cause of all diseases in the body. And the gunas, the Rajaguna, Tamaguna, and Satguna, which I mentioned earlier, are the causes of all the pathology in the mind. So there's many different treatments that I've got here on the slide, Panchkarma you may have heard of, and how to live. And what we eat, our hara, is not just through our mouth, but what we see, what we hear, what we think, and what we speak even. And how we live our daily routine. Dinacharya is a core practice of Ayurveda, and that also encompasses the practices of yoga: early morning practice, having a bath, cleaning the 5 senses, how we live, how we do yoga, how we practice off the mat as well, how we eat, and how we finish the day. So we want to have regular practice, and this answers a couple of our questions. In the same way that we have regular food, we want to do regular practice, because in the same way the energy of the food runs out, so does the benefits of our practice. So you can do like morning and evening for your meditation, yoga, and pranayama, but find a way that it fits in with your way of life. So that should answer a couple of the questions. And when you do your practice, find a calm and solitary place to do it. Have a stable posture. Practice the asanas. Practice pranayama, controlling your breath, bringing you to a point where you withdraw from your senses, enabling you to turn your mind inwards, concentrating on one particular point. And that is the process of yoga. And I would like to, before, I have just got a short video, just 2 or 3 minutes, which I think Bhushan Ji is going to show. Bhushan Ji, can you show that video now? It's just a couple of minutes, and then I have 1 slide after that.
Okay, I'll just.
So please carry on with your questions in the chat. So whilst the video is on.
Experience Sound Monster.
This video is of some kids that I've taught in Varanasi, and some scenes of Varanasi. Bhushan Ji, do you want me to try?
Host can add like Host, please give me the sharing option. I can share.
Can the host give Bhushanji the sharing option for the video, please? Thanks a lot. And when the video is over, if you can give me the share back, and I have just one more slide.
Okay.
Do you want me to try and I will? Is someone about to bring the video on?
Experience 7 months. It will just take.
So whilst we just go to the video, someone was asking what kind of food to eat after yoga. It's important to understand what your state of the system is, but generally lighter food is better to eat after yoga. If you hand back the share to me, I can try sharing this video. If you want to, if the host can hand the share back to me, and I'll share this video. Keshavji or Bhushanji, if you can hand me the host, I will. If you can hand me share, I will share the video. Okay. Right. Jagataha Sambrama Brahman Virola Vici Vallari Virajamana Ishwara Chandrasekhare Raji Pradeksha Sudatiganta Santati Brahmodamana Manasi Vakataksha Surani Pati Pachiti Gambati Madoni Sodati Dukasumi Jata Bujanga Pingala Surat Pranamati Sada Shivam Bhajamyaham, Sada Shivam Bhajamyaham. Namah. So I hope that you enjoyed that short video, and I've got one last slide that I'd like to show you in conclusion.
Lucy ji will also consider a time. We'll
Yeah,
quickly
this
take
is
two
the
questions.
last.
Yeah.
So these are the words of my teacher about what life is all about and what yoga is. Happiness is the aim of life, and we can't attain happiness without peace. And peace is the result of a tranquil mind. And we can't get a tranquil mind without stable wisdom. And stable wisdom is ultimately the result of meditation, which I told you is the practices of yoga, of the asanas, the pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So I hope that you enjoyed the presentation, and I apologize for maybe taking a little bit too long. It was hard to cut anything out, you know.
No, it's not like that. We wanted to have some questions also. That's why.
Shall I just read the questions out myself? So someone's just asking when I started doing yoga. I started doing yoga in this way about 22 years ago. But I didn't know what I was entering when I started, I have to say. It's over the years that I really have got to understand what life is. And I started doing yoga because I was an investment banker at like the main American investment banks in New York and London. And I was very stressed. And that I was looking for something that can help me bring peace and happiness and calm in my life. It felt very empty. I was earning a lot of money, but it seemed to be very meaningless. And that's what brought me to meditation and yoga. And going back to the question about food is different for everybody after yoga because it depends on your individual nature of the vata, pitta, kapha. But generally, light, healthy, clean food is recommended. Easily digestible food is best after yoga. And if anybody's got any other questions, please feel free to ask them. I've got another question privately. What is the infinite of yoga? I'm not quite sure what you mean, but I think what do you mean the ultimate aim of yoga? If you mean what's the ultimate aim of yoga, or what's the benefit of yoga? Okay. And the benefit of yoga is that you can make your body healthy. You can improve the circulation of all your body through different asanas. So curing different disbalances in your system. Pranayama can help bring you into a stable mind, a calm mind. Because actually, really, you know, when our mind's unsettled, our body becomes unsettled. If we can digest things that we're experiencing in life in the world, then our body can digest in our stomach. So really, it starts much higher up in like the intellect, the ego, and the mind, which then like manifests in the body. So yoga has like got the tools that go through the physical body and the subtle body and the causal body as well. So like the physical body, the mind, and the intellect. So it can help you with worrying and with your psychology, bringing you to a stable mind and balance the whole system, making your system healthy, flexible, and more efficient as well. We become very efficient in study and our life actions as well through the practice of yoga, because we're able to focus much better. We waste much less energy. And really, there's no limit how long you can do yoga in a day. I mean, I have done up to like 16, 18, 20 hours in a day. But if I was in an ideal situation and I had someone in front of me, I'd recommend them to find 1.5 hours. But I know that that's not possible for everybody. So it's important to see what time you've got available. And the ideal would be 50 minutes of asanas, 20 minutes of pranayama, and 20 minutes of meditation. And in the beginning, that can be really difficult, both to like sit still and also to find the time. But I'll tell you something that I've experienced is that pranayama, the practice of pranayama, really starts when we don't want to stop. That's same with the postures. When we like run out of our own individual energy, suddenly we like get this a special ability to have more energy. So look at what suits your life. I'm being asked by quite a few people for how to contact me as well. And is yoga the same everywhere, or is it different? You'll find lots of teachers have different practices for yoga. They might call it hatha, or they might call it ashtanga, or they might call it vinyasa. But ultimately, if it's yoga, it's going to get you to that level of consciousness where you've got that stable intellect, that stable wisdom, your breath will be under control, and you're one-pointed and able to concentrate. So if there are no more questions, Sanjeev, do you want to handle giving out my contact number, or should I just put it here in the chat?
We will share later, ma'am. We'll not do it. Interested students can reach us through our social media handles.
Oh yeah, thanks, Sanjeev. So I want to say thank you so very much to the organizers, both ICCR and WOSY, for so kindly inviting me to share my passion in life of yoga and Ayurveda. And as you can see, I could talk on for 24 hours, but I know that, you know, we've got a special amount of time here. I really hope that's helped some of you, inspired some of you. And at WOSY, we're really happy to take any more questions anytime that you might have on the subject.
Thank you.
Pranam.
Pranam.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Lucy ji. I personally see it's a very insightful session, and also, understand how yoga can transform an individual life. So yeah, here we are. I request Mr. Anjan to give a word of thanks and kindly conclude the session. Thank you.
Okay, a very good afternoon, one and all. Ji, I'm audible. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. A very good afternoon, one and all. I'm Anjan Bomala, WOSY Hyderabad chapter. It gives me an immense pleasure to me to deliver word of thanks for the session on behalf of WOSY and ICCR. Before that, let me take the opportunity to thank Dr. Sanjeev Ji, the Secretary General of WOSY, and Dr. Abhishek Srivatsava, Vice Chairman of WOSY, and Dr. Chandrasekhar Reddy, Vice Chairman of WOSY. Pranam Lucy Ji, we are honored to have you here, and we express our gratitude for enlightening us with such a wonderful speech. Your speech was so thoughtful and informative. The knowledge you shared was so thoughtful and motivates the young minds to practice yoga. Particularly, the demonstration using pictures of asanas encourages the youth to follow yoga and Ayurveda. And I hope the participants have enjoyed thoroughly your presentations, and that definitely encourages the participants to practice yoga and Ayurveda. They have known all the benefits of yoga and pranayama, which is much beneficial to both body and mind. And I sincerely thank the audience for their patient listening and involvement in the session. And they interacted well with their question and answers. I think they got enough information, and we are ready to give in future communication also. And I extend my thanks to the organizing committee for giving me the opportunity to deliver vote of thanks. A special thanks to ICCR and WOSY India. And thank you, one and all. Have a great day ahead. Namaskaram.
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you, Lucy. Ram. Yes, Bhushan.
I will request all participants to add the feedback. I request all participants to add feedback in the given link chat box, so it will be helpful for us. Thank you.